Board games. I'm gonna talk about one particular board game, but I'm not gonna shout. Today I am going to open locks, and that's the best rhyme I could get to come up with rocks. It's a game that's all about speed. In this game, I'll tell you what you need to do. You need to go and count the different symbols. What's the relative amount? Whichever's the most, that tells you which one you need to grab next. And I think the game's quite fun. Rocks, 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 rocks. It's what I'm talking about. Rocks, 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 rocks. I'm not gonna shout.
Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good
whatever it is, wherever you are. I hope that you're generally well, and that's me kind of sorting out the. Wait a minute. Trying to sort out the overhead camera, also known as my mobile phone, and there I think that should hold. So today, I am talking about the game that I just mentioned. It is 10 a.m. I did start a couple of minutes late. Apologies for that. But good morning, good evening, good whatever it is, wherever you are. It's time for Busy Beats and Board Game Blether. Today I am talking about Rocks. Rocks is a game from HABA. It was designed by Günter Burkhardt. I hope I'm pronouncing that okay. And it's a nice addition. It's definitely got some unique properties to the speed grabbing, speed analysis whole genre of games. There's so many games out there that are all about quickly grabbing things at speed, right? And in this one, you're counting things, and there's also Little Magic Eye, which makes it feel different. I'll get into that all in a minute. But hello, Jess, how are you? I hope that you're generally well. And thank you for forgiving me for being a couple of minutes late. And good morning, Paul. I hope that you are generally well. What are you up to? Before I talk about Rocks, we will, of course, have the recent highlights and a brilliant thing. So let's go to recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. So my recent highlights involved going out and checking out the park, being on, like this morning, this year I've been trying to wander around before I really engage with tech, and the truth is that when I get up, it's like so tempting to look at WhatsApp, to look at the messages to see, oh, have I got any new messages? But I try to walk around the block, and I don't do it most days, but I try to do it. This morning, I felt a little bit more energetic. I went out, I went all the way to the park and then I stood on the bridge and watched the waterfowl gallivanting around in the water and, you know, making noises with each other. You could call it singing if that's your impression. Like calling each other over. It's like the birds are saying, hey, check me out, check me out, check me out. That's basically what they're doing. They're flirting with each other, right? But yeah, that felt like an achievement. Yesterday, I was doing a good bit of writing for the game about compliments. I was spent a couple of hours investigating compliments, doing a bit of research and trying to transcribe that into things that could fit on the back of like 52 cards. It's not a vital part of the game. It's just a nice to have. And so, yeah, that was definitely part of it. Oh yeah, what have you been up to? What are your recent highlights? Jess says, it's been a busy day. Been teaching teenagers about poverty. Had a bike ride in the jungle with awesome people and went to an outdoor gig till 4 a.m. with awesome people and relaxed after that on Sunday. Wow, that does sound busy indeed. So yeah, for myself, definitely progressing with games, and oh yeah, I even was writing a whole bunch of things for the game with lots of cake, and yeah, there's probably going to be a mirror in it that reflects. Anyway, games are coming from me, I promise. Let's talk about brilliant things, brilliant things. What's a little thing which is brilliant? And oh, Jess wants more clarification on the cake. So the cake is just a card. The cake, it's just a card game where you grab things at speed and you put things together. So maybe there's Hungry Harriet who really wants the cake, or maybe there's the party planner who really wants the cake, and maybe you've got a party hat, and if you've got the party hat and the cake, anyway. But anyway, that is my quick explanation. So let's get talking about rocks, and let me start off by saying why I believe speed games and also rocks and HABA in general, just to contextualize it, I love these kinds of games where there are so many cards and you're looking at them and grab. For me, there's no time to get bored. That's the best thing about a real-time game. The best thing about a real-time game is that, if you're competitive, it's not like you're waiting to take turns. I mean, that's basically the advantage of it. Of course, most real-time games, they become about execution. There's no strategic decisions to be made. I mean, arguably, when you're looking around at different cards, you might see one that's a bit more obvious. So there is actually marginally more, but I'm not sure that there is any decision making. It kind of feels like the Dance Dance Revolution style of gaming, where you have to do the thing, and this is what you must do. But what's brilliant about it is that it's going to help teach kids to count. It's like, okay, which one on this card, are there more reds or are there more whites? Well, as an adult, I can just glance at that and think, well, it looks like there's more reds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Whites, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. And if you look at this, which color is there the most of? Again, it's teaching you to count. And as an adult, I look at this and, okay, is there more reds? But you could glance at it and you might potentially make a mistake. It's teaching the kids a skill. It's teaching them something that they will probably have to use in real life. And I think that's something about HABA, that HABA are brilliant in that most of their games, even they are fun for kids to play together, and they are even fun for adults to play together, because the central concept of the game is an engaging activity. Whether adults and kids can both play together is a different question. Of course, it often depends on the skill of everyone involved. It might be that your children are actually faster than you, but that's a question and that is actually going to be my main issue with it. Just to give my summary, I think it's a great game. I think that the scoring is overcomplicated. I think that it's slightly sad that, the person who's always winning is going to keep winning you. It's just got the same problem as a lot of games. Like, but you do at least grab your own thing, so you get some satisfaction and they get point. But like, it does have that one problem that's central to basically all speed games, that if you're not the best, you might feel a sense of despondency. You might feel a sense of, oh, why am I even playing? Because there's no way you can possibly catch up. It's not like you can really get excited. But here there is a little bit more of that. So this is better in that version than games where there's just one central bit to grab. The Magic Eye doesn't really work as well as I would like. That's basically my summary. But anyway, I'm talking about things that are not brilliant. That's my summary. So feel free to comment, ask questions, follow. And let me start off. So, overview. What is rocks? Whoops. Rocks. Let's put it here so you can see. Okay, in rocks, you've got a bunch of points cards. People are going to get these points for successfully chaining cards from one to the other. And then you've got a bunch of cards and you're going to put them all in a big mess in the middle of the table. This is a quick overview. Look, on the count of 3, everyone grabs one. You look at it and you think, okay, which color is more prevalent here? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yellows, 3 greens, 2 reds, 4 whites, 2 blues. So it's yellow. I mean, you don't need to do it so laboriously one at a time. You might just glance at it. But again, the faster you do it, the more likely you are to make a mistake. And this is the central thing. Like most speed games, it is naturally going to push you. So if you play with a bunch of super skilled people, you're then naturally going to be trying to go faster and faster and always pushing yourself to the point of potentially making a mistake. And rocks does have a really interesting way to approach mistakes. So once you've got it, you're not grabbing it into your hand, you put it in front of you. Let's say that's my area. And in the second card, I would look at it and I'd say, okay, it's blue. So I put that down, I grab a blue. And I would say, okay, this one's white. That one's really obvious. Why have they got, okay, they've got whites all in one row. That's clearly white. So I grab a white. And okay, now it's green. Grab a green. And the next one would be another green. And I grab a green and I shout rocks because I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 cards. You say rocks and that's the end of the round. This is the bit that's kind of interesting. So you've got these points cards, right? Let's say there were 3 of us playing and you could have a 10 and a 9. And so that would mean that the person who actually got all their things would get 10 points. And then out of the other people, the person who's got the longest would get 9 points. The person who's got the third longest doesn't get anything. Conversely, because the cards that you flip over are completely random, it might be that the person who won got 2 points and the person who came second gets 1 point. And this is an interesting design, I think they maybe did it so that everyone gets points except for, one person. But since the points go down in value, like, why not just give the points to literally everyone? I mean, it just felt a bit weird. And then there's randomness. So, like, you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it could be like the first person gets 10 points and the second person gets 1. Or it could be that the first person gets 2 points. And you could lose every round because you play 5 rounds. You could lose every single round, and then at the end you win one of the rounds, and because the disparity is so great, you manage to win the game overall. And so I think that for the family target audience, this is probably quite a good thing, because you kind of, it adds more randomness and it adds more hope to people. It makes you feel like, hey, even if I'm not as fast, I might still be able to win. Do you know what I mean? But I much prefer the way that Saboteur did it, where, hey, here's a random scoring token, and the scoring token will have 1, 2, or 3 points. And 1, 2, or 3, that's still enough of a difference to be like, wow, sometimes you get 3 times as much. And as opposed to being like, this is meant to be for 2 to 4. Yep. So sometimes if you're playing 2 players, it might be that one person wins 4 rounds, and then they get to 1 point, they get to 2 points, they get to 3 points, they get to 3 points. And then the other person wins the final round and they get 10 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then the other person with the 10-pointer does actually win the entire game, which does feel a little bit weird. Now, is that going to annoy someone? Is that going to, yeah, like you want the excitement of, oh, there's this big scoring thing that's come out, but it's also had so many rules. You know what, I'll get into the scoring a little bit later, but you've understood the game, hopefully. I got this game, just for full disclosure, I got the game for free. I was doing demonstrations for Indie Game Alliance, and one of the games that I chose to get was Rocks. To put it into context, I think it is a fairly cheap game. I should have looked it up actually on Rocks by UK board game. If I looked it up right now in the UK, I cannot. Here we go. It is currently unavailable, but at the time, I think it was meant to be a cheap product sold for about £8. And for £8, that is incredible value. But also for that kind of price, they're really targeting, they need to be selling tens or hundreds of thousands of copies, I assume, because you get so many cards and you get a nice two-piece box. And so for, $8, which is what they claimed on one of the American interviews that I watched, because in preparation for this, I watched the interviews with the HABA demonstrator where she was explaining it, and just wanted to make sure that I hadn't missed anything. But it is a very nice game for the price point. But again, I think that it is possibly a little bit too complex. Let's talk about the things I love. Now, things I love. I love speed games. And sure, there's lots of speed games where you're matching something, where, oh, look at this pattern, and everyone flips and check when this pattern matches that one. Of course, my game about grabbing creatures, that's totally different, and counting your beetroots or radishes or turnip series, it flips that by having non-matches. But I think that Jungle Speed, the popularity of it has really it's really changed the landscape of gaming. And then you've got Twin It from the same artist, again, about flipping cards, and whenever you see a match, you need to grab the things that match. You've got so many games where you're matching your previous thing, or like pick a pig, or pick a dog, or pick a seal. You've got so many games where you're looking at a thing and it's like, okay, then they start to get a little bit more weird. Games where you're looking at words and then you try to find a word that matches this color, and then that tells you what the next thing is. But there's not really games that I can think of where it's purely how many of each thing is there, which is most prevalent. And that's such a super obvious thing. I think that this is what I love about it most of all. That it feels, wow, that's super simple. Why had no one done it before? And that kind of thing, it shows that it's going to be intuitive. It shows that it's going to be easy to play. It's literally just look at the card, which is most prevalent. That tells you what to pick up next. And they've done it in a fantastic way. I mean, it could have easily been flipping things over and then you need to count them and then you need to shout. I mean, that's what I did with a game about frantically counting colors and shapes, where you're counting the colors and the shape. But if in this one, it's got the aspect of everyone grabbing their own stack, which I've used in Grabble, but It's like, okay, you look at this and then you put the next one on your own line. You've got your own area. Everyone else might be grabbing, but you have to grab here. And if there is someone at the table, you can house rule it. You can say, okay, you know what? You need to get to 6. I need to get to 7. You can make those kinds of tweaks to the game. And I played it with my niece. The game is, according to this, meant to be 7 to 99. So, sorry, anyone who's over 100 years old, HABA doesn't like you. I mean, it is kind of a weird thing, to be honest. I feel like age should just be 7 plus. I mean, it's not like at 100 years old you magically stop being able to play the game. But, yep. I played it with my niece when she was like 4 years old, and we had a good game where I said, okay, you need to grab 4 things and I need to grab 7. And obviously, like, there's a disparity. I'm an adult, I'm fast track counting, I play a lot of games. But for my niece, it was an interesting game, and that's the key thing. Like, you can easily level it out. And that is what I love about the game. The other thing that's definitely worth mentioning is this magic eye. So the idea behind, let's talk about the magic eye for a moment. So in theory, you'll notice that there's a jumbled up red pattern on the back of each card. And if you look closely, you can see a faint black or grayish bit. And if you cover it up with the red, because the red gets rid of the white, you can just about see that it's the circular pattern, very similar to that, in the center of the stone. So like there's a little symbol in the center of these yellow bits. And so this little red eye allows you to, in theory, check all of them. And the truth is that you need to really press the card next to it, and then do you see? And then this one, let me push that up. You can sort of see there's the diagonal staircase just about, which is the same as the blue. And then on the blue, there's I think it's a Japanese kanji symbol. And the magic eye is really cool, and I wonder if it's actually any easier on the other side. Oh, I can actually see that in real life fairly easily. But anyway, this is meant to be a way for you to check. And the truth is, I can almost see it without using the red thing. And it's not like it suddenly becomes, whoa, it's so much more obvious. The magic eye kind of, it's a cool gimmick. It's a nice way to check. And yeah, I think actually it's cool tech. It just doesn't, it's not flawless. That's all I'm going to say. It works well, but not perfectly. And so I think that it's definitely better that they improved it, and it is really cool as a gimmick to say, oh, what's this game with this magic eye? What's going on? And then afterwards I saw that there's a couple of kids who said, oh yeah, we're really excited to play with this magic eye. It's really cool. There should be more games with this magic eye. And having this hard bit of plastic, of course, it's an extra cost, but they can afford to do it if they're printing tens of thousands. And this tiny bit, it's the thing that I think that if you are able to see it easily as a child, you might be like, oh, this is like a fun ritual. And let's actually get into how the check is done. Let's assume that I got this one wrong, okay? That I picked up blue, and instead of there's 5 whites, I thought that blue was the next one somehow. So it'd be, okay, this one's correct. Okay, this one's correct. Okay, whoa, this one was wrong. And so that would mean that I get 3 points. And so essentially, as soon as someone calls rocks, the person who got the most correct would get the highest scoring. So remember, we talked about, let's say it's a 3-player game and you've got a 3 and a 6. If I had only gotten my first 3 correct, then someone else grabbed 4, but they were all correct, and the other person grabbed 5 and they were all correct. Well, the person who grabbed 5 would get the 6, the person who grabbed 4 would grab the 3, and because I made a mistake, oh, sucks to be me. Whereas if the person who grabbed 5, let's say their mistake was here, well, that's not too bad because they still score 4 points. But if the mistake is over here, well, then they only score 1 point because you score for everything up to the point of your mistake. And this is an interesting scoring mechanism. In theory, this means that at the start of the game, you want to be more careful. And as the game goes on, well, I can just race and go a bit more by gut. And it does actually give the game an added, aspect. It's like there's definitely an emergent strategy. The scoring system is interesting, but let me talk about the scoring system for a wee moment. Let's talk about the card distribution, because you know that's what I love to do. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, that's a 9, 10. That's a 6. Okay, so you've got all the cards from 1 to 10, and the first thing I want to point out is these, the 6s and the 9s. Do they not basically look exactly the same? I mean, I honestly cannot tell any difference between the upside down 9 and the upside down 6, except for the background. And so why even have these? I mean, and with a 9, why not do the 9 where it's got a straight edge? I just think that that's bad graphic design. I just think that you should avoid 6s and 9s if you don't need them for your game. Why do you even have 6s and 9s? That feels like an oversight, and it makes me slightly sad that they would do such a thing, frankly. Okay, so it's clustered around 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which does mean that in theory the scores are likely to cluster around there, but occasionally you might have like, whoa, there's a 10 this time. The whole scoring system, it does feel too corner casey. If there's 2 people who've grabbed the exact same number, then it's just the person who was closer to the person who called rocks. That's the rule. So if the person to my right is constantly calling rocks and they're wrong, and I'm doing exactly as well as everyone else, that means I'm going to win the game because they're calling rocks, and sometimes they'll get it right. They'll, get the most points. Sometimes they might get it wrong, in which case, if I tied with someone else, hey, I benefit. It's nothing that I did. And this is where it depends, like, how much does that matter? Again, it is a game for children. It is a game for 7+. It is meant to be an educational game. But then the other thing that kind of frustrates me is it feels like this whole aspect, this whole system, it just feels slightly too complex. It feels like this scoring just, it isn't necessary. I don't really, yeah. And that's my main beef with the game, if I'm going to be honest. This whole scoring system, it's not necessary. It doesn't feel like, okay, everyone's scoring points. If you've got, but except for one person, but that can sometimes feel worse. Like if there's 4 people and everyone's scoring points except for one person, sometimes that feels worse than one person scoring points. And if they put in 5 more cards, then they could have just said literally everyone scores points. And if you're the person in last place, you still get some number of points. like some consolation prize. Basically, get points unless you make a mistake. Maybe that's how it is. Or you've got to have at least 2 correct to get the points. And that would be reasonable. But instead, in a 2-player game, you're still going to have the sadness of not getting the points. And yeah, why not? And at that point, like, anyway, the whole system, it's trying to teach you to count, right? So you've got the counting on the card, you've got the counting on when you get to 6, you shout rocks, and then you've got the counting at the end. So you've got to think, okay, let's say I've got 5 cards or 4 cards. Okay, it's what's 4 plus 2 plus 10 plus 8. Okay, that's 24. And, that's practicing arithmetic at the end for a child if they're struggling. Obviously, the adults can help with that. I do find it interesting that they chose to not put pips or anything. I think that going up to 8, if they had, I don't know, like 8 little symbols, like 8 little stars or something on there, and here 10 little stars, then you could have still had the numeral. So children who are old enough to count up to, do addition in their head would be able to do that. But if someone's not old enough, they would have gone like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. And that would have helped a younger child to be able to count more easily. And that feels like it would have been a nice improvement to the game. And obviously, no game is perfect. If you look at any game that I designed or published, like, there's all sorts of issues that you could find with it. And genuinely, overall, I think this is actually a really solid game. I would rate it quite highly. And I think that this game, as much as I might be unsure about the scoring system, even with the rules as written, it feels like it's bringing something fresh to the table with the counting, with the magic eye. And so, yes, I am definitely a fan of rocks. And if you see it somewhere, then I would suggest you possibly check it out. I did want to finish up by having a wee look at the card counts. See, let me turn the... Why is that still shining? Let me just turn that off. Okay, so hopefully you can... Let me try the other lights. I do apologize for my lighting. Nope, that doesn't work either. I do apologize for my poor lighting. Okay, all I'm going to say here is that... Nope, let's stick with that. I organized these yesterday into how many of each symbol there are, because I was curious. I was wondering what the relative frequency would be. There are about 60 cards here, and one of them has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the most and 6 of the second most. So this many, actually I wrote it down somewhere. I do apologize. Window. 6 of them have 6 as the most. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 37 of them has 5 of the most. So all of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the second most will have 4. And then Finally, there are 15 with 4 at the most. And the 15 with 4 at the most is really interesting because it's always got to be 4, 3, 3, 3, 3. Like 3 of every colour, but then 1 extra of 1. And these ones can take a little bit of time to look through. It's not always obvious what it is. And I think that this is a really strong variation. I think that they did well. I don't know what's perfect, like what is perfect, but I think that if it was always one number, if it was always 5, then that would mean that as soon as you count 5, you know that you're onto a winner. And if you count 4, you know that it's something else. Whereas the presence of having 5, 4, 6, and 7, which if you got to 8, then yeah, I was slightly curious why they never went. I thought they might have one that goes to 8 and then 7 as the second most, and then, but it feels like it adds uncertainty, it adds randomness. You can't just say, I've counted this many of this object, therefore I know what's going on. It actually becomes far more a game of not speed counting, but speed recognition. Looking at a random card and saying, okay, red looks like it has the most, and then you spend possibly a moment to double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, it looks very... And it feels like there's always that slight uncertainty that unless you literally count everything, which you don't have time for, you're never 100% certain. Is this correct? Is it not correct? It adds a little bit of tension. I really like that. And then they've also got the variety of, with the ones that have 5, is there just one other color that has 4? Are there 2 other colors that have 4, which these ones are the most confusing to my mind? Or is there nothing that has 4? And sometimes it's super easy. And sometimes this one's super easy depending on where the placements. Like if you see this card, then you can see all the whites in a row and you're like, whoa, well, all the whites in a row, I can see at a glance that nothing else fits that. But this is the kind of thing that, with a family game, you want this amount of luck in it. I think that's brilliant because the luck means that sometimes you pick up a card and, whoa, it's easy. I get a surprise. I get to joyous moments where it's like, haha, I got a nice little bonus. And then sometimes it feels like, whoa, it's, yeah. Sometimes it's like, whoa, what's going on here? This is like more of a complicated one. And it takes me a couple of seconds to realize, okay, white is the one that's got 5 and blue's got 4, green's got 4, red's got 3. Okay, boom, it is definitely white. And where like just the positioning, it definitely adds variety of difficulty. And I wonder if they could have pushed even further into that, putting more randomness into here and less randomness into the scoring. I mean, this is all, post-analysis. This is like, hey, HABA, if you want to do a second edition of the game, because I do think that there's really something here. I do think that this is the kind of game where there was a genius idea and it's done well, but just like Hive Mind, like by Richard Garfield, it was good, but it was slightly overcomplicated. And then, yeah, it got redesigned by someone else, and I do think that the redesign, even though I would have preferred if they'd given some sort of credit and said thank you to inspiring us, to Richard Garfield, but anyway, it feels like it's evolved slightly, been simplified and been improved. With this one, I feel like yeah, there's a lot of ways that it could go. And the truth is, I don't know if I would play it by the rules as written all the time anymore. Even in the interview, the person doing the demos on behalf of HABA said, oh yes, you can play it until someone's got a certain number of points, or play it for 3 rounds, or whatever. What she didn't say is you can play it for 5 rounds, which is what the rules tell you to do. It's not as if these rules anywhere say, oh, by the way, here's multiple versions. You can play this or you can play that. I do really like that in Lego games when they say, oh, by the way, you could try this, you could try that, or you could use these extra pieces and use them for whatever your creativity desires, and encourage other people to do house rules, because that's meant to be the thing of the creativity in those games, encouraging people to do things. And this one, I would say, yeah, you know what? Like, play until one person gets 20 points. That might be a good rule. Like, but because then I don't know. But I honestly, if I were to redesign the game, and this is where I go, like what I would be doing is I would have these cards, and they would have like probably 1, 2, or 3 on them, and maybe the winner gets 2, maybe, or the winner looks at them secretly, so no one else knows how many the winner got, and then the winner looks at them and takes 1, then the next person takes 1, and it goes on for everyone. Actually, looking at them secretly might be interesting, but I would explore looking at them secretly. I would explore having smaller numbers and working up to a certain target score. I would explore kind of keeping that private, although then if it's private, you can't have an adult helping the child to make sure what score they're at. Maybe the game ends when someone has won a certain number of cards. Like if it was to end when someone had won 6 of these cards, and that might be kind of interesting, give a symmetry between that and that. Although then you would need more of those, because currently there's 5 times 15, and so yeah, then you'd need 3 times 5, 15 plus 6, you'd need 21. And that would mess up with the card. Like another 6 cards might be a big problem for this. But I would also put in a touch more randomness in here. I might actually just think about being like, okay, the winner gets a card, that's it. And if you've got 6 points, you win the game. And so maybe it wins when one person's won 2 times because they've got 3 points both times, good for them. Or maybe it wins when everyone's won 5, when one person's won 6 times. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's how I would do it. Just winner gets a point. It's the length of your thing. I like that rule. And add in a little bit more variety here, because yeah, if you look at just to the thickness to give you a visual representation of the numbers, that is how many have 6, that's how many have 7, that's how many have 5, and this is how many have 4. So you can see there's a big clustering around the 5s, and that feels appropriate, but I feel like it could have been pushed a little bit higher. Anyway, honestly, I am playing at the margins. It's a great game. It hasn't been improved. I think that if you see it, if you like the idea of a game about quickly grabbing things and counting things and speed recognition, and it does feel different, I would absolutely encourage folk to check it out. I said yesterday that I will be getting rid of this, but the thing that actually tipped me over the edge is the multilingual bits. So yeah, I might I might try to play it a couple of times, teach it in French, because I've got the French instructions as well as the English instructions, and it's always interesting how the French is actually, it's not just a transliteration, it's actually an adaptation, where they both give you sorts of different things. Yeah, and so yeah, I might keep it for a bit longer to practice my French, and also because frankly, it is a fun game. But yeah, that's Rocks. If you have any questions about it, then please ask in the comments, and I will be sure to answer. Like, obviously, I had nothing to do with this game. I think that HABA is a great company. I would love to work with them one day. I think that the production is fantastic. I think that, yeah, the box fits perfectly. Like, well, I say perfectly. There is like a wee bit of extra space, but it's good enough. It's a nice, compact little thing. And I like that they've got this bit where it says precise observation and velocity. That's what this game is all about. And this is what it's teaching. And it's a solid game. Well done. Well done to Günter Burkhardt. And also well done to Franz Winkel, who was the artist. I do think that the stones, I mean, it's just one drawing for the stones and then a bunch of symbols and like so there's one illustration of the stone, 5 colorings of that, 5 symbols and 5 shapes. There's not a lot of graphics, but what there is does actually, with the stones, I think the stones do actually look really nice, personally. I mean, I don't know what you think, but all the background and, yeah, for me, it just looks lovely. Not so convinced about these bits. These look, but no, well done to everyone involved. I do feel like possibly with some extra simplification. I mean, it looks like it's no longer really on sale. It felt like it could have been done even better, but still, Rocks, from my rating scale of, it's going to get 1.5 thumbs up. Yeah, it's somewhere around there. Congratulations, it's a good, solid game. Not every game is going to get a 1 thumbs up. I know, like, I love games, but that doesn't mean that I say every game is brilliant. I mean, every game has brilliance, but maybe soon, like, I'll talk about something that is not so good. But anyway, Rocks, yep, solid little thing. I'm just repeating myself at this point. And so let me wrap up by asking, over to you, what are you up to? You can share, but only if you want to. My question of the day. If you've watched this far, thank you very much. What is the last speed-based game you played? I played Rocks on Friday night, and I don't think I've played any non-digital games since then. I played my own, like, I've played multiple speed games, but yeah, before Rocks, it was my game about grabbing slices of cake and volcanoes and monocle makers and stuff. But yeah, what have you played a speed game? Do you like speed games? What was the last one you played, if you can remember? The last game where you were having to do things. And yes, sports absolutely count because they are games and they are all about the speed. And hello, Josie. Yes, I just finished talking about Rocks. Yep, I do get pretty in depth, even if it is a really light game. Paul Plum says Anomia. Oh, that's a fantastic game. Flipping over cards, and then when you're pattern matches someone else's. Then there's the second element of you need to look at the category that's on their card. Then you need to shout a word that fits their category. That is a great game. And again, about the pattern matching, but pattern matching plus the word association. That's a really interesting one. And Geist splits or Ghost splits. I think Ghost splits is another really interesting one where, yeah, it's overcoming these sets of rules in Geist splits. It kind of feels like the whole game, it's about learning the rules. It's not super intuitive. It's like, okay, which of these things matches the correct color? But if neither of them match the correct color and object, then which one is missing? And there's a few leaps of logic, but then it's one of those speed games where it intentionally tries to trip you up, because it's interesting. Like, you've got speed games where they're intuitive, and so the skill is in how fast can you execute. Then you've got speed games where the skill is, okay, how fast can you internalize these rules? And do you know what I mean? Like, double is obviously just point at the thing that matches. That's it. It's the most intuitive thing ever. It's just pure execution. Anomia is somewhere in the middle, I would say, but Geist splits, it's very much on the rules as challenge. Like, it's not just the execution speed, it's the navigating the obstacles of the rules. Josie has played double in real life. Oh, Geist splits as well, and Rainbow Rage. It seems like everyone's a fan of speed games, so yeah. I'm sorry I said that I might do a giveaway, but I've decided this is one that I'm going to keep. But I will, next time I've got a day that I don't know what to talk about, I might talk about presents or, yeah, I'm thinking a magician. I might wait until I've gone through literally all of the pictures, because then I will be totally done with it. But I hope that, yeah, and what are you up to? What are you up to after the show? What are you doing? I am going to be doing a bit of reading. I'm trying to take Mondays off as much as I can, and I'm going to try to spend some time away from the screen. If there's anything you want to share, I promise that you care. But let me recap and wrap up before we finish up. So to recap and wrap up, rocks. Overview. It's all about counting things. Grab a card. What's the most prevalent shape and color on it? That is the color and shape that needs to be at the center of the card you grab next. Intuitive. Works well. The hierarchy of information, colors and shapes around the center, and the thing that you're grabbing permeating the background color and in the center, like, sorry, I said things that you're counting around the border, not the center. I completely misspoke. But it works well. I got it from the IGA. I love the fact that there's not that many games about speed counting. The fact that I do actually like speed games where everyone's working on their own wee bit, and then you check them after the fact. I like that. The Magic High Tech is cool. It's a gimmick. It's fun. Other people like it. And I like the idea of it, but when I actually came to use it, it was just kind of annoying because it doesn't work perfectly. It works okay, it doesn't work perfectly. The scoring system I felt was slightly clunky. The card distribution I felt was really interesting. I feel it could have been slightly flatter. I feel like there could have been more variance in the difficulty of certain cards. Like if you'd had one or two cards where the most is 7 and then the second most is 5, then that would potentially have like 1 or 2 games where, so it's like, oh my gosh, it was really easy. Yeah, there is an aspect of, if you look at the board, well, before you grab, like, okay, no, you've got to grab the yellow, but do you want to grab one of the yellow that you can instantly see what it's on? And so there is a potential strategy of, depending on how quickly you see it, looking at multiple yellows, but it's generally just faster to take the yellow and then look at that one carefully. It's generally good. Josie asks, what are you reading at the moment? I've got a few things on the go. I'm terrible for finishing things right now. I am struggling with concentration, so I'll see how it goes. I might end up like flitting from book to book. But yeah, I am reading Phoenix by Osamu Tezuka. I've got one of those books, and I'm reading a book by James Wallace about board games that got to the end, and yeah, there's a couple of other things. And I've got some short stories. And hello, Dutch Yoda, it is lovely to see you. If you want to check me out, of course, I am Stuff by Bez everywhere. If you want to know what I'm talking about for future streams, check out stuffbybez.com/streams. It also tells you what conventions I'm at. So if there's a convention that's not on my calendar that you think I should be at, then let me know. So tomorrow, Adam Porter and Rob Fisher are coming on to talk about puzzles. And I'm quite excited by that because for me, puzzle design is a brand new aspect. So I'd really like to ask Rob about their process of making sure that all puzzles are solvable. And is it important that there's only one solution? Is it okay if there's multiple solutions? Why is it important that there's only one solution? On Wednesday, I'll have Alan Paul. On Thursday, I'll talk about present. On Friday will be a quick 5-minute thing, and Saturday I will be taking the day off. Sunday will be a cooking show, and I will see how that goes. So, share, spread the word, and once more, thank you everyone. Lots of love. The only thing really left to say at this point is bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye, Paul. Bye, Yoda. Bye, Josie. Have a lovely day. And lots of love. Bye-bye.